We were just contacted today by the governor's team, and we are on target as a Finger Lakes region to begin phase 4, which should start somewhere in the area of this Friday, June 26th. It will not be all encompassing with all the activities that are currently closed. There will be decisions made. Right now, we're looking at the reopening will include some low-risk outdoor activities, some low-risk indoor activities. Arts, entertainment, museums, art galleries will be included in that. Outside could be outside arts, gardens, things like that. The one thing I want to reinforce is that areas such as the malls, gyms, movie theaters, casinos will not open on the first day of phase 4, but will open it sometime during phase 4. Those guidelines are still being reviewed. There's a lot of data they're analyzing right now. I know people are waiting for those. We get that. We get requests every day. But the governor's team explained today the research and work they're going through, which is extraordinary. And those areas will all open during phase 4. Just there's no date certain. There's more work being done on those. There should be additional guidelines published sometime tonight on the forward.ny.gov website, late tonight or tomorrow morning. But overall, we're just very pleased by the fact that the Finger Lakes, as we have consistently from the start, we've been on target every single one of the phases because our numbers are excellent. The infection rates, the hospitalization rates, all the things that really we are judged on have been very, very positive. And it really is thanks to a lot of hard work by a lot of people, leaders throughout this region, but most importantly, the men and women and citizens who reside in our 9-county region, people who have abided by these guidelines, even though they might not have liked them, might have really felt uncomfortable with those, but the distancing, the masks, the hand sanitizing, the disinfecting, those things overall have really brought us to where we are today. So we are on target for phase 4. We've hit each one of those on time. More guidelines, more information coming out throughout the week. But a great call today. We talked with the budget director, Director Robert Mojica, at length today, who answered a lot of questions for us in our control room. And we just feel we're very pleased with the information, the feedback, and also the direction where we're going.
If you have a question, please let me know in the chat function. I'll call you in the order received. Bob, you may have already touched on it. What about places like event spaces, banquet halls, the convention center?
They weren't mentioned specifically, but as Director Mojica mentioned, they are going through. There's going to be a new analysis, some new announcements about the group sizes. I know for houses of worship and other events, they're reviewing that right now. There's no number put forth, but they're looking at trying to expand that into phase 4. We'll wait for that announcement. But I think the issue that was really discussed at length today, and one we are well aware of, you look at the states where numbers are going up, and we asked this question today, what is causing those numbers to go up? And New York is looking at other states are seeing a rise in those infection rates. And a lot of it, areas like bars, clubs, concerts, outdoor venues, even houses of worship, singing, dancing, talking, close proximity. It's the transference of this virus in the air, which seems to have been most problematic in these areas. I'm sure other reasons as well, but those are things we talked about today. So, the state is trying to be very methodical with this in the governor's office in terms of making these decisions. The last thing we want to do is open and then back off and close. So some of these guidance issues are still being worked on. As I said, some should be published today and tonight, more to follow. But the areas that people are, I mentioned before, the malls, the fitness centers, movie theaters, casinos, the things that we get asked for all the time. Yes, they will open during phase 4, but they will not open at the beginning of phase 4.
If you have a question, let me know in the chat function. First question from Randy Gordman.
All right, Bob, how are you?
Hi, Randy.
Good. I'll try to make it brief, but kind of a two-parter here. First of all, when you say the things like theaters and shopping malls, gyms open during phase 4, I know it's not a guarantee, but can we assume then if it is the normal course of business, it would be sometime over the next 2 weeks, because each phase is at least 2 weeks, correct?
Each phase has been about 2 weeks. I've learned one thing, Randy, not to make guesses on dates or timeframes, but phase 4, there's not going to be a phase 5. So phase 4 is starting, say, the 26th, 27th of June, at the end of this week, and will go on. Phase 4 could last 2 months. It could last 3 months. There won't be a phase 5, so it's going to be a gradation of certain activities, just based on some of the research and feedback that the state is getting. And really, it's the measurement of these activities region by region. That's why we have a control room. The control room is there to monitor these things, and every day we go through a whole number of the infection rates, hospitalization rates, our numbers, which have been really good. And again, I credit the people in this region who may not like doing these things, but really have adhered to these guidelines pretty consistently overall, with few exceptions. And I think that's why we are today. If we weren't, if our rates were going up, we wouldn't be here in phase 4.
May I just clarify? You mentioned the museums and arts venues would be opening in phase 4, but would that include inside as well as outside?
Yes, I would imagine starting at the beginning of phase 4, strong museum, memorial art gallery, galleries like that, museums that aren't large venues. Of course, strong is very large, but there'll be capacity numbers attached to that. I don't want to give the wrong number out. I think I know what it is, but at this point here, the guidelines will come out with a capacity for attendees and people going into those buildings. But those are really going to be on target to open probably at the very beginning of phase 4. The other ones I mentioned will be in phase 4, but not right away.
Thanks.
All right, again, if you have a question, let me know through the chat. Next question, Lowell Rose.
Hi there, Lowell Rose from Spectrum News. My question for you all is kind of sort of 2 questions. Will zoos be included in this phase? And the second part to the question is, since it looks like we will be going into phase 4, what do you tell the public? They may get a sense that things are back to normal, but we're still in that area of caution. What do you tell the public going into phase 4?
2 great questions. Zoos were not mentioned today. Zoos, amusement parks have not been cleared yet when phase 4 begins. There's some work being done. They will open in phase 4. But zoos have been on the list, and quite frankly, we get a lot of inquiries about that. So waiting for those guidelines. It will happen at some point, perhaps not on the first day unless it changes, but it's coming. Your second part of your question is an excellent one, and I just want to reinforce this. If we let our guards down, if we go back to how things were in February, we'll be back at that point pretty soon. And looking at other states and the infection rates going up, it just shows when people relax and think we're back to normal, this virus really is relentless. And states where this numbers are going up, the states did nothing wrong. They may have opened some areas a little quicker than others. Those are decisions that each governor, each state makes, trying to make the best of their ability. But the bottom line is those numbers are skyrocketing. And even right now, Major League Sports, there's a crossroads. We're discussing professional sports with no fans. I know some of the major league teams are coming down with the virus. So the whole world is being impacted by this. And what the governor and the governor's team is doing is they're really on this day-to-day analysis. They're looking at other states, the Florida, Texas, other states that are seeing the spikes, and trying to break down what is causing that. I mentioned before, things that, churches, houses of worship, synagogues, mosques, singing, concert venues, bars and restaurants, especially bars where people are close by talking to each other. People have been pent up for, 110 days. We get it. But we just have to be so careful. And I'm proud to say I went out, met my family today for lunch. We walked in, we all had masks on. Everybody coming into that restaurant had a mask on. The service folks had masks on the whole time. People are listening. And I keep saying this, I hate wearing a mask. I do, but we do it. And it's not a macho thing. It's not a political thing. It's one of responsibility. That is it perfect? Does it prevent everything? No. Seat belts don't prevent every death in an accident, but does it help? Yes, it does help. And you factor that with other areas, it really causes these rates to hopefully stay low. And I know it's in California, they're mandating wearing a mask publicly at all times. Our guidelines in New York State are wearing a mask if you cannot keep 6 feet away. If you cannot socially distance, you have that on. But California started opening a little too soon in some areas. They're going backwards. We don't want to do that. But I go back to phase 4 being announced. Great news for us. It is, and it just really points to the Finger Lakes region has been #1 every single time there's an announcement. We're hearing pretty much first that we're being opened up, and we've been on schedule for each one of those phases. I just ask people's patience for those areas that I mentioned that aren't opening right away. Yes, they will open. Yes, they'll be coming open. Just there's not a date certain, and I've learned not to project or guess a date and then be wrong. I'd rather just leave it open, and when the governor's team are ready to announce it, they will.
Hey, as we wrap things up, if you have a question, please let me know in the chat. Bob, let's talk about the gyms. We've heard from many gym members, both concerned about gyms reopening and also those who are eager for gyms to reopen. We're also hearing some gyms have announced already that they're opening on Friday. Not the case now. What's your message to those folks?
Well, ones that announced this Friday, I would never announce something I was not sure of. So you don't want to raise people's expectations. They're not opening this Friday. That's pretty clear. They will open in phase 4, but I do think gyms can open safely. I've forwarded countless plans of fitness centers and gyms, the Y and others, to the governor's team. They're very thoughtful, very thorough. They may look different, maybe less equipment. There's going to be separations from people. Yes, they can open, and they will open, just not on day one. So I think those things can be done safely. But the second part of the question is, what you can't predict are the people that may not want to go back to a gym, may not want to get on a plane, may not want to go to a restaurant, may not want to go out and do the things they did before. Managing fear and trepidation is going to be an important thing, and it's going to be individual choice. We want people to get back to normal. We want to get back and support these businesses that have really taken a huge economic hit and support them as best we can. Restaurants being open, that's a big thing in phase 3 when it opened up. State Liquor Authority relaxed its rules. I mean, there's a lot of work being done. And, you know, I almost feel like I manage the complaint department here because we get all the complaints every day, and we get it. I get the emotion, I get the economic pain. I also understand the process the state is using. And for all the critics out there to take issue with it, it is working. It is. It's working for us. Is it working for every single business? No, I can't say that, because certainly some have been much more impacted than others. And we hope when they are open, they do come back and come back strong. But we do not want to go backwards. And again, we're on point right now. I'm proud of this entire region. I'm proud of our control room, all the leaders, city, county, urban, suburban, rural, 9 counties, both sides of the aisle, people working together, and all the residents who are, by and large, with few exceptions, following these rules. And that's why we're opening on time with phase 4. And hopefully we keep going. All these other activities I mentioned that may not open on day 1, they'll eventually open, and hopefully sooner than later.
If there are no other questions, we'll wrap it up with a follow-up from Randy Gorbman.
Okay, so one thing, Bob, just meant to ask you, I know there'll be some guidelines coming out tonight. Do you have any guidance at all about education, whether it be higher education schools? Is any of that being talked about yet for phase 4?
Great question. Education at all levels is being discussed. The governor did put some guidelines out on a website for higher ed. Our colleges, universities, and really elementary through secondary schools around the state, they're working on plans right now. Those plans will be approved. Be it far from me to say that they will all open on time in September. I can't predict that, but I do think that that is the intent, to prepare for the fall for opening, and those plans have to be approved. But I have forwarded, again, countless plans from all levels of education. They are thoughtful, they are comprehensive, and keep in mind, you have our elementary and secondary ed, so important in so many different ways here. Higher education is one of the biggest economic drivers in our region. We have 19 colleges and universities here in our Finger Lakes region. They, like any business, they are huge drivers for our economy. So we want them to open and open safely. And I would sense we're on track for that. I just have learned, don't predict, don't raise expectations. You know, trust the process, go through the process. And the good thing is we are moving right along here. And again, we've hit each mark in all 4 phases, and I expect us to hopefully fully open sooner than later in phase 4. But that's a decision that really comes back to the governor and his team. It's their responsibility, and our job is to give them all the data information that we can to help them make those decisions.